We've been gearing up for Aligned 17, which is a virtual conference dedicated to sales and marketing alignment. It's happening May 22nd through the 26th, and we wanted to do something special for B2B Growth listeners. Leading up to the event, we'll be giving you early access to some of the Aligned 17 sessions. Today's episode is exactly that. So if you like today's interview, head over to aligned17.com and sign up to access every session of the event. We've got an incredible lineup of speakers, including Gary Vaynerchuk, Jill Conrath, Tony Hughes, Tucker Max, and Trish Bertuzzi, along with dozens of other B2B sales and marketing experts. So go to aligned17.com and sign up today. You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to Aligned 2017. I'm really excited for this session. I have the one and only Jon Miller. Jon, welcome.
Thank you. Howdy.
Thank you for taking the time. So, for those who don't know Jon, who is Jon and what is Engagio?
So, I am the CEO and co-founder here at Engagio. We help companies with what we call account-based everything. And we do that by providing a marketing orchestration platform that really brings together your data and your operations, helps with the measurement and analytics and insights, and then lastly kind of orchestrates plays across departments and channels.
Perfect. Love it. So to start off, this is Aligned 2017. We're talking about sales and marketing alignment. Why do you think they typically don't get along?
Yep. I remember I wrote a blog post a while back. I called it, marketing is from, sales is from Mars, marketing is from Venus. And I actually do think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that concept of Mars and Venus. Mm-hmm. Fundamentally, the two departments think differently, about things. They attract a very different kind of person. By the way, no judgment on one side of being better or not. They're just different. Salespeople tend to be more, I think, extrinsically motivated. You get into sales partly because you want to make money.
Yep.
And marketing tends to be a little bit more intrinsically motivated. Partly as a dynamic of that, sales has a really strong bias towards action. Get this thing done, get the deal forward. Marketing tends to have more of a bias towards, maybe just a longer term view. Mm-hmm. A little less focus, less sense of urgency, but maybe more focused on a kind of longer term strategy. A good organization wants both, but like Mars, like Venus, it requires a fair amount of dedicated work to then get those two departments to kind of work together.
Got it. Love it. What are some of the, technical challenges that you see stand in the way of teams really building that alignment?
Yeah, I don't think that people have really talked enough about the technology side of this whole thing. I think there's a couple that get in the way. The first is that, sales has sort of always talked about accounts, and at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, they talk about the accounts that they've closed. Marketing has historically always talked about leads, and this is the fault of tools like Marketo, which obviously I know well, or any of the marketing automation platforms. They're fundamentally lead-centric systems. Mm-hmm. So you've got marketing working in a lead-based system. You've got sales working in an account-based system. That's inherently just a mismatch that makes things hard. Mm. It encourages marketing to be a little bit more focused on quantity. How many leads? How many, of these? Whereas, sales, cares about quantity, but sales really at the end of the day cares more about quality. Am I engaging with the right kinds of people at the right kinds of accounts? Mm-hmm. So there's a mismatch there. You've got another challenge where the departments are generally working in different tools. Again, marketing has historically worked in their marketing automation platform. And 8 years ago, that wasn't so bad because sales wasn't sending their own emails. Right? Or at high volume. They were just doing kind of their own low volume stuff. Mm-hmm. But, so marketing would send drip campaigns and whatever. And you had that. But now what's happened is in the last few years, we've had this emergence of these sales automation tools. And so now all of a sudden you've got marketing sending drip campaigns in their tools, and now you've also got salespeople or sales development reps sending drip campaigns, in their tools. Marketing doesn't know who's getting emailed by sales. Sales doesn't know who's getting emailed for marketing. That's kind of a hot mess. Mm-hmm. That's certainly not orchestrating a cohesive customer experience.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit more. What is the difference, really, between a marketing email and a sales email? And maybe I should say a good marketing email and a good sales email.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I think to begin with, nobody expects a marketing email to come from a human, right? I mean, you look at it and you expect it's got to have a banner and pretty images and
the company talking.
Yeah, I mean, it might say "Dear John,"
yeah,
right, and we sort of like oh, okay, they put my name in it, but there's a much lower bar for the level of personalization, and if I get an email from a close friend of mine, that is but a marketing email from their company, and it's very clearly a marketing email from their company, I might think it's a little weird, but I'm not going to be like, what the hell, Mike? Why did you just send this thing to me?
Yeah.
Because I know it came from a machine.
Yeah.
The thing about sales email, and the problem, is that it looks like it comes from a person. It acts like it comes from a person in terms of it kind of goes through the spam filters and all that. But unless a person actually spent a lot of time to really personalize that and make it relevant, it doesn't actually come from a person. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, that just that's no better than marketing spam. Mm-hmm. Just because your tool lets you send a whole bunch of sales emails doesn't mean that you should send a whole bunch of sales emails. So I think this is another area of misalignment is marketers learned some best practices around respecting opt-in, permissions, and actually delivering value in emails. I think some salespeople have, and I laud those people for kind of doing a good job. But the reality is, I think there's a large fraction of salespeople who have been given tools to let them send more sales email at greater volume, who are just using them to send out robo-spam at volume. Mm-hmm. And that's not good for anybody.
How do you think we start to correct that?
Well, ultimately, we're talking about alignment, and I think we do need to get a little bit more clarity around the different roles. In a traditional demand gen process, one of the ways you created marketing and sales alignment is you had handoffs. Mm. So marketing would own that customer as they were first being generated until they would become a lead. And then you would hand it over to sales development to qualify it. Mm-hmm. And then sales development would hand it over to sales to close it. And then sales would hand it over to customer success. And it was like this assembly line where you pass the baton, and as long as you had good rules around when you pass the baton, you sort of, quote unquote, had alignment. Mm-hmm. That's sort of not working so well anymore in a target account-based world, where we're going after bigger, more strategic accounts. Mm-hmm. Now we're in a world where it's much more intertwined, where sales should get involved even at perhaps the earliest stages, and marketing should get involved even when it's an active open opportunity, and customer success should be involved all the way along too. Mm-hmm. And then just because it comes a customer doesn't mean marketing should stop trying to market to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so it's a better world when you have these things that can kind of work together. But it also creates more complexity because you now need effectively clear rules of engagement for kind of who does what when, as the buyer goes through this journey, if you will. So ultimately, I think every company needs to decide how they're going to figure that out. How are they going to figure out their rules of engagement? Or put another way, how are they going to plan out what's that customer experience? As they move through each of these different stages.
I think that's it right there, right? Is really aligning around the customer experience.
Yeah. And so the question, again, different companies will make different choices. Yep. In my opinion, I think that marketing is probably the organization that's sort of best suited to be the architect.
Why do you say that?
Of the customer experience. that is a more longer term, more I think strategic process in terms of, again, and I'm talking about architecting, designing the experience, if you will. Forrester's written about this, Gartner's written about this, pretty much all the analyst firms. I mean, that sort of ultimately saying the future of marketing is design. It is as the owner of the customer experience at each stage of the journey. That does maybe marketing is the orchestra conductor. Maybe they're the one that's making everything, that's coordinating. That doesn't mean that they're the only player here, right?
Right.
I mean, so I'll mix my analogies here. So starting with the orchestra, I mean, there's your string instruments and your percussion instruments and your brass, and at different parts of the symphony, some of them are louder and some of them are softer. And that's appropriate. Again, though, you need to make sure it's all kind of working in harmony. Sales might be more involved at some places. Customer success might be more involved at some places. Somebody's making sure that they all work in harmony. And I do think that is the role of marketing. To use a different analogy, that we've talked about before, football. So we're talking about running plays. The play is the set of orchestrated interactions that your team is doing, lining up everybody in your team to everybody on their team. In this world, marketing is the coach, right? Who's writing the playbook, crafting out these plays that you can run of who does what when. In this analogy, marketing may be the coach, but I think sales is the quarterback. Sales is the one who ultimately owns the customer relationship, which is different from owning the customer experience.
Interesting.
And I think sales of the quarterback is the one who's deciding what plays to call when. And so when they know they need to run a particular play, they can open up the playbook that they get from marketing and say, we're going to do this one. And then as soon as that play is being run, now once again, you got everybody involved. Your wide receivers are doing something, your linemen are doing something, your quarterback's doing something. Hopefully it's all orchestrated and working in a way to sort of achieve your goals.
Perfect. I love it. Let's talk about playbooks a little bit more. I think that's a really interesting topic. I think that's a great way for people or teams to really align, right? So how should we think about actually creating our playbook? Everyone get in a room together and build these out? Does one person start and pass it along? How should we build these playbooks?
Okay, I think it's going to be different for different organizations. I mean, let's just start by what are the kinds of plays, that you want to think about, So I mean, but you should jump in here too. But some of the plays that I've seen people want to run, something simple as, hey, somebody from a target account just downloaded a white paper. Well, what's the appropriate play? To follow up. Obviously you're going to just respond, but what else do you want to do?
Right.
That's a play.
Yeah.
When something from your target account happens, what do? Nurture is a kind of play. Today people think of nurture as this thing that the machine does, sending out an email every 2 weeks and it's going to send the same marketing email to everybody. But we should think about when is it appropriate for a human email, to play its way into nurture. Because ultimately that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to build a relationship. Events, you're sponsoring a big trade show and you want to set up meetings, for an event, right? Doing that requires marketing to do a bunch of things, requires sales to do a bunch of things, requires sales development to do a bunch of things. A play is all about how do you get all those different functions to work together with the goal of let's set up a bunch of meetings, for this trade show. If you kind of move further, in the funnel, if an account becomes marketing qualified and gets really engaged with you, right? How are you going to follow up with that? That's a play. Let's say you've qualified it and you've now really turned it, said you want to pass it to a salesperson. That handoff is a play, right? Yep. Now you're running a sales cycle. Well, what are the interactions that are going to happen there? That's a play. So my point is, I won't keep going down. I mean, you can kind of see where this goes. Yep. There are plays that you run at every stage, of that journey. And, I think, a good practice is, it's the marketing-led initiative, but you want to bring sales in. You want to bring sales ops in. You want to bring sales execs in. To the extent that you're actually writing email templates, make sure that they're getting involved on that. Ultimately having alignment there is, on what plays you run when is a pretty foundational thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people think plays are just what you do to open doors at accounts. But, I mean, we've seen a lot of success with our customer success team running plays to really engage and maybe do some customer marketing, maybe to get in front of churn, maybe to do any of these other things. Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think, I saw this when you talked about our own customer success. I don't think we should ever forget how important the team selling aspect of this whole thing is. There's so many companies out there who think that it's just one lone SDR sending a series of emails, is the best thing to do. Mm-hmm. And it's just so much more effective when you can complement that one SDR with touches that come from marketing, to create air cover and awareness, or reasons to call, and you complement that with touches from the account executive and from your corporate executives. It's when those things all work together in that orchestrated way where you get that, 5x, 10x, lift in response rate. We're running a program right now where we run this multi-step play to connect with and engage with target accounts. And to date, 22% of the companies that we've targeted, with this program has resulted in meetings.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
It's not too bad at all. We'll take that.
And actually, maybe even higher than that, more than half, it's like 65, 70% of the companies at least responded, had a human response. Mm-hmm. Even if it's like, hey, I'm not ready for a meeting right now, like just getting human connections going from this multimodal connection is really key.
Yep. What is like the most creative or fun play that you've seen? Maybe someone's run against you. Maybe it's something that we're running. Most creative play to open a door.
I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to answer a different question.
Okay.
It's fun to talk about creative plays.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's way more effective to run just something that's really relevant, really personalized. It's not that hard to figure out, I'm the CEO of a, 45 person, fast growing startup. What are the things most likely to be on my mind? If you can actually come to me with something that is going to teach me something, help me to do better in my job, that is so much more likely to actually get a response from me than the most creative or the most catchy, trick or something like that.
So that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Cool. So as we're coming up on time here, I usually like to end these with, something that someone might not know about you, something that they wouldn't find just on social. What did you want to be when you grew up? When you were small, did you ever see yourself here? Where did you see yourself?
Yeah, well, that's a good one. I always wanted to be an astronaut.
An astronaut?
Yep. I was saving my money to get pilot lessons, and then finally I realized that probably wasn't going to happen for me, and I took all that money and I bought a really high-end computer, instead.
Nice. You think you'll make it to space still? Maybe with,
I don't know, maybe in our lifetime.
Maybe, right? Cool. Tell our audience where they can maybe connect with you or just learn more about Engagio.
Sure. Well, I'm at Jon Miller on Twitter, and we are at Engagio.com.
Easy enough. John, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks.
To ensure that you never miss an episode of the B2B Growth Show, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device.
If you'd like to connect with B2B executives from all over the world, make sure to join our private Facebook community. There are some incredible conversations happening inside this group. To join, visit b2bgrowthshow.com/FB.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.